The sun rises slow and golden over my family's farm, casting long shadows across the dewy fields. This land has been in my family for generations, thick with history, sweat, and a quiet resilience. The pond at the back of the property shimmers in the morning light, a mirror of sky and trees. It's where my grandfather taught me to fish, where my mother found solace after long days, and where I now sit, coffee in hand, letting the world wake up around me. It should be a peaceful morning. It should be mine. But I spot it again, something small, but not insignificant. A set of footprints in the damp grass leading up to the water's edge. Not mine. Not my family's. Someone has been here. I frown, my grip tightening around my mug. It's the third time this week. I tell myself it's nothing, a stray walker, maybe, or some curious kid from the neighborhood. But deep down, there's a nagging feeling I can't shake. Ever since the HOA was formed in the nearby subdivision, things have been different. The neighborhood, once mostly rural, with black and brown families like mine who had been here forever, has been shifting. New money, new faces. People who moved in and suddenly decided they knew best. They paved over wildflower fields to build their perfect little cul-de-sacs. They put up fences where none had ever been needed. And lately, they've been eyeing the land that isn't theirs. My land. I finish my coffee and head back toward the house, my boots crunching against the gravel. That's when I see her.
Karen.
Not her real name, of course, but it fits. Platinum blonde bob, pastel workout set, oversized sunglasses perched on her surgically taut face. She stands at the end of my driveway, arms folded like she owns the place. Beside her, a golden retriever tugs at its leash, its tail wagging in contrast to her stiff posture. I sigh, already bracing myself. Morning, I say, polite but wary. She doesn't return the greeting. Instead, she tilts her head, scrutinizing me like I'm the one trespassing. I notice someone put up a private property sign by the pond, she says, voice clipped. I nod. That'd be me. Karen's lips press into a thin line.
Right.
Well, that pond has been such a lovely spot for the community. My husband and I have been bringing Max there for months now. We just assumed it was public land. My jaw tightens. It's not. She lets out a sharp breath, as if I'm being difficult on purpose. Well, that's unfortunate, she says, her voice honeyed but edged. A few of us from the HOA have been talking, and we think it would be wonderful if the neighborhood could have access. It would really add to the area's charm. I stare at her, stunned for a beat. She says it so casually, as if I should be grateful for their interest. As if my family's history, my rights, mean nothing. I shake my head. That's not gonna happen. Her smile falters. Oh, she says, as if the idea of someone telling her no is foreign. I see. But the way she's looking at me, calculating, assessing, tells me this isn't over. And for the first time I realize, this is only the beginning. A week passes. The footprints return. At first it's just a few, a careless path through the grass leading straight to the pond. Then I find trash, a crushed LaCroix can, a half-eaten granola bar. Signs of someone who doesn't belong. Someone who thinks they do. I start locking the gate near the back of the property, but it doesn't seem to matter. Every morning, new signs appear, disturbed dirt, trampled reeds, a fresh set of prints. Someone is ignoring the boundary, ignoring my no. Then one morning I find something that stops me cold. A wooden Adirondack chair. It's been dragged to the edge of the pond, positioned just so, a perfect view of the water. As if someone has decided this place is theirs now. As if they've made themselves at home. A slow anger simmers in my gut. This isn't just trespassing anymore. This is ownership. I take the chair and haul it back to the road, leaving it by the curb like discarded junk. A silent message. That evening, I hear tires crunch over gravel. I step onto my porch just as a sleek black SUV rolls to a stop. The door swings open, and out steps Karen, looking as if she stepped off the pages of a country club catalog, crisp white blouse, designer jeans, pearls resting neatly at her collarbone. She doesn't belong out here in the dust and heat, but she walks toward me like she does. Her smile is tight, too polite. "We need to talk," she says, and just like that, she's inviting herself onto my porch. I fold my arms, blocking the way. "I think we already did." Karen lets out a small, breathy laugh, as if I've said something cute. "Oh, come on. No need to be so territorial. We're neighbors, aren't we?" I don't answer. She exhales through her nose, eyes flicking toward the pond. "Look, I don't know if you realize this, but the HOA has been discussing some improvements to the area. Things that could increase property values. A nice walking trail, maybe a little picnic space. We take care of it all, landscaping, maintenance. You wouldn't have to lift a finger." My fingers curl against my arms. That's not happening. Karen's smile doesn't falter, but something in her gaze sharpens. "It's just a pond," she says lightly. "Why be so difficult about it?" My jaw clenches. "Because it's mine." Something flashes across her face, just for a second, quick as a strike. Annoyance? Disbelief? Something deeper, uglier? Her lips part, as if she's about to say something else, but she stops herself. Instead, she exhales, schooling her features into something more composed. "Well," she says too sweetly, "I suppose we'll just see about that." She turns and strides back to her car, heels clicking against the gravel. A chill prickles up my spine as she drives away, because I know a threat when I hear one. The chair comes back the next day. Not just the chair, there's a whole setup now. A small folding table, a cooler, and a brand new "Welcome to Oak Ridge Community Pond" sign staked right into the earth. My stomach tightens. This isn't trespassing anymore. This is claiming. I take a photo and rip the sign out of the ground, my hands shaking with anger. Then I march straight to the HOA office. The Oak Ridge Homeowners Association occupies a fancy brick building just outside the subdivision, all manicured lawns and fresh white paint. The kind of place that looks welcoming until you step inside. Karen is behind the desk, chatting with a man in a polo shirt, her laughter light and artificial. She spots me immediately, her smile flickering before she puts it back on. Hello again," she says, feigning surprise. "I wasn't expecting you." I drop the sign onto her desk. "Take a guess why I'm here." Her gaze flickers down, then back up. "Oh," she says, pressing a hand to her chest as if I've wounded her personally. "That's not an official HOA sign." "No kidding." She tilts her head. "Did you consider that maybe someone else put it there?" I take a slow breath, measuring my words. The chair came back too, with a cooler this time. "Someone thinks my property belongs to the HOA." Karen sighs, shaking her head in faux sympathy. "I understand your concerns, I really do. But I checked with the county, and it turns out that pond technically borders HOA property. There's some ambiguity." I feel my pulse spike. "Ambiguity?" She nods, her eyes gleaming. "I mean, if it's unclear, shouldn't we all share it?" My hands clench. "There's no we here. It's mine." Karen just smiles. "Well, if you believe that, I'd be happy to discuss it with the HOA legal team. But I should warn you, property disputes can be very expensive." I see it then. The game she's playing. She wants me to back down. She wants me to get scared, to feel outnumbered. I lean in, lowering my voice. "You put that chair there, didn't you?" Karen blinks, her expression carefully neutral. "I have no idea what you're talking about." Liar. I grab the sign and walk out. The pushback. That night I make some calls. First, to my cousin Malik, who works in real estate and knows property law like the back of his hand. Then, to Mr. Washington, my elderly neighbor who's lived here longer than anyone and remembers every property line like it was drawn yesterday. By morning, I have proof. Old survey maps, deed records, and Malik's firm legal advice. Karen doesn't have a leg to stand on. So when I drive past the pond and see a group of HOA members already setting up lawn chairs, my anger flares hot. I park my truck and stride over. "This is private property," I say, loud enough for everyone to hear. A few of them shift uncomfortably, but Karen, sitting pretty in her Adirondack chair, only smiles. We're just enjoying the community space. I hold up the documents. Not community. Mine. You're trespassing. She doesn't even look at them. Oh, is that what your little printout says? She says, voice dripping with condescension. Because we're in talks with the county about rezoning. My blood runs cold. You're lying. Her smile widens. Am I? I glance at the others. Some look uncertain now. Good. Anyone who stays, I say, voice firm, is trespassing. And I will press charges. Karen's smile falters. She glances at the others, calculating. Slowly, one by one, the neighbors pack up. Within minutes, only Karen remains. She stands, brushing imaginary dust from her pants. This isn't over, she murmurs as she walks past. But the slight shake in her voice tells me she's rattled. Good. Let's see how she handles what's coming next. The next morning, I wake up to the sound of voices, too many voices. I step onto my porch, and my stomach drops. Down by the pond, a crowd has gathered. HOA members, lawn chairs, coolers, even a small white tent with a community picnic banner strung across it. Karen stands in the center of it all, wearing a smug little smile, as if she's hosting a grand event on her land. Rage surges through me. I grab my phone, snap a few photos, and march down the path. Karen spots me and waves. Waves. Good morning, she calls, her voice chipper. We were just setting up. Thought we'd make it official since everyone enjoys the pond so much. I stop in front of her, barely keeping my voice steady. You are trespassing. Karen sighs dramatically. Oh, come on. We went over this. The HOA has already submitted a request for public easement. You can't just hoard natural beauty all for yourself. I take a step closer. That request isn't approved. And this is still my land. She shrugs, unbothered. Maybe for now. But the community has spoken. People want access. You can fight it if you want, but honestly, that's going to be very expensive. Lawsuits, legal fees, court hearings, she tilts her head. Do you really want to go through all that? I see what she's doing. Trying to intimidate me. Trying to make me feel small. She gestures toward the crowd. Everyone here agrees. It makes no sense for one person to keep this to themselves. That's just selfish. A few people murmur in agreement. Others shift uncomfortably. Then she lowers her voice just enough for only me to hear. You don't really belong here anyway. The words hit like a slap. There it is. The truth beneath all the fake smiles and polite words. I feel a familiar weight settle in my chest, one I've carried my whole life. The expectation that I should prove my right to exist in a space. That my ownership, my presence, will always be questioned in a way that hers never will. But I am done playing by her rules. I take out my phone. Funny you mention lawsuits. Because I just spoke to my lawyer this morning. Karen's smile twitches. Oh. I hold up my screen, flipping through documents. This is my deed. The survey map. The county records proving this pond is on my land. I turn the screen toward the crowd. For anyone who's confused, here's the legal proof. A few people lean in. Some look surprised. Karen folds her arms. That doesn't change the fact that the HOA is pursuing public access. Once the rezoning is approved. That won't happen. I cut in. I swipe to another image. This time, it's an email directly from the county office. Your rezoning request denied. Karen freezes. I take my time reading aloud. The land in question is privately owned and is not subject to HOA regulations or public easements. I lower my phone, which means this, I gesture at the whole setup, is illegal trespassing. A murmur sweeps through the crowd. Some people back away. Karen's face darkens. You think you're so clever, she hisses. You think you won? I raise an eyebrow. I don't think, Karen. I know. She's flustered now, scrambling. This isn't over. We'll file an appeal. No, you won't. I turn my phone one last time. The final image, a security camera screenshot. Karen, dragging her chair to the pond. Karen, hammering the illegal sign into the ground. A perfect shot. Her face drains of color. I don't just have proof, I say, voice steady. I have evidence. And if anyone trespasses here again, I'll press charges. The crowd falls into an uneasy silence. Karen's mouth opens, then closes. For the first time, she looks truly cornered. I step forward. Now get off my land. And this time she does. Karen stands frozen, her carefully curated confidence cracking at the edges. Around us, the crowd watches, waiting to see how she'll spin this, how she'll wriggle out of the noose tightening around her entitled little neck. I hold my phone steady, displaying the damning security footage for everyone to see. So, Karen, I say, letting the moment stretch, letting her feel it, what was that you said about not putting up the sign? About not trespassing? Her mouth opens, then snaps shut. The HOA board members shift, exchanging uneasy glances. A few of them whisper, backing away from her, as if afraid the stink of scandal might rub off. Karen lets out a brittle laugh, shaking her head. This is ridiculous, she scoffs, waving a dismissive hand. That footage doesn't prove anything. It's grainy. It could be anyone. I raise an eyebrow. Anyone? Because it looks exactly like you dragging that chair down here. She scoffs again, her hands clenching at her sides. This is harassment, she spits. You're twisting things. Everyone has been using this pond. I was just trying to make it better for the community. I glance at the crowd, reading their faces. The doubt is creeping in now, the reality of the situation settling on them. Then a new voice cuts through the murmurs. That's not all she's been up to. Heads turn. Mr. Washington, my elderly neighbor, steps forward. He walks slow, leaning on his cane, but his voice is steady as steel. I've been watching this unfold for weeks, he says, his eyes locking onto Karen. And I've seen what you've been doing. Coming down here early in the mornings, scoping the place out. I heard you talking to people, lying about how this pond was public land, trying to push folks into believing it belonged to the HOA. Karen stiffens. I never. He cuts her off. I recorded you. Karen visibly flinches. A collective murmur ripples through the crowd. Slowly, deliberately, Mr. Washington pulls out his phone, tapping the screen. A moment later, her own voice plays out over the quiet gathering. I don't care what the actual property lines say. If we act like it's ours, people will believe it is. The recording is clear. Unmistakable. Karen's face drains of color. I take a step closer. So, I say, my voice calm, you knew this wasn't HOA land. You knew it was mine. And you still tried to steal it. Karen sputters, her hands trembling. That's out of context. That's... No, Malik's voice cuts in. He steps up beside me, arms folded. That's called fraud. Karen's head snaps toward him. Who the hell are you? My cousin, I say smoothly. And a real estate attorney. Malik holds up his own phone. I just got off the phone with the county office. Turns out, the fake rezoning request you submitted. He shakes his head. Forgery is a crime, Karen. Gasps ripple through the crowd. Karen stumbles back, eyes darting wildly, looking for an escape, an ally, anyone. But the HOA members are no longer by her side. A few step away, like they don't want to be associated with her. Wait, she says, her voice cracking. Let's be reasonable. This doesn't have to be a big deal. Malik smirks. Oh, it's a huge deal. You used your HOA position to falsify documents, mislead the community, and attempt to claim land that was never yours. I cross my arms. And now, you're going to be held accountable. Karen shakes her head violently. This is insane. I am the HOA. I run this neighborhood. Malik tilts his head. Not for long. As if on cue, one of the board members steps forward, a middle-aged woman in a navy blazer. Karen, she says, voice cold, we can't have someone like you representing us. Karen whirls toward her. Tina, wait. We'll be holding an emergency vote to remove you from the HOA board, Tina continues. Effective immediately. Karen's face contorts, twisting from shock to rage to something desperate. You can't do this to me, she shrieks. I built this HOA. I made this neighborhood what it is. Tina doesn't even blink. And now you're done. The words land like a final blow. Karen stumbles, breath ragged, realization dawning that she's lost. The last of her power, stripped away. I take one final step toward her. You thought you could take what wasn't yours, I say, my voice quiet but firm. But you never had the right. She glares at me, her jaw trembling, hands clenched into fists. Then, without another word, she turns on her heel and marches toward her car. The crowd watches in silence as she yanks open the door, slides inside, and speeds off down the road, dust kicking up behind her. The second she's gone, the tension in the air breaks. A cheer rises from the gathered neighbors. Not all of them, but enough. Tina steps forward, nodding at me. I'll make sure the HOA issues a formal apology, she says. And if Karen or anyone tries something like this again, we'll shut it down. Malik grins, nudging my shoulder. Damn, he mutters. That was satisfying. I exhale, the weight of weeks of frustration lifting off my chest. The pond is mine again. No, it always was. Karen's downfall is swift. The HOA vote is held that very evening. Stripped of her position, banned from future leadership, and slapped with a formal complaint, she's unceremoniously erased from the organization she once ruled. But that's just the beginning. The next morning, an investigative reporter picks up the story. Turns out, Karen's fraudulent rezoning request is just one of many shady dealings under her tenure. Fudged HOA budgets, misallocated community funds, even a few mysteriously denied home improvement applications, denied for Black and brown homeowners, but mysteriously approved for white residents. By noon, the article is everywhere. Neighbors whisper. Some pretend they never supported her. Others, the ones who cheered at the pond, send quiet messages of apology. Then comes the final blow. County officials launch a formal inquiry. Malik sends me the update with a single text. She's under investigation. A day later, Karen's house goes up for sale. Reclaiming my peace. I sit by the pond that evening, watching the sunset ripple across the water. It's quiet again. Peaceful. The way it's supposed to be. Malik strolls over, 2 beers in hand. He passes me one and drops onto the grass beside me. Hell of a week, he says, cracking his drink open. I chuckle. Yeah. Can't believe she tried to steal your damn pond. She didn't just want the pond, I say, watching the sky darken. She wanted control. Malik nods, taking a sip. And now, I exhale, feeling something lighter settle in my chest. She has nothing. The neighborhood shifts. The next few weeks are interesting. Some neighbors stop to chat more often now. Some even apologize. Others keep their distance, embarrassed at how easily they believed Karen's lies. Tina, the new HOA president, makes good on her word. She issues a formal letter acknowledging the situation and enforces stricter rules on board members. The pond? Untouched. Mine. As it always was. Final justice. A month later, I get a call. Karen was charged with multiple counts of fraud, HOA embezzlement, falsification of legal documents. She cut and ran before the full force of the law could hit, moved out of state, rumor has it. But she can't outrun everything. She lost her home, her power, her control. And the best part? The neighborhood moved on without her. The last word. One evening, I find Mr. Washington sitting by the pond, cane resting against his knee. I take the seat beside him. He watches the water for a long time before speaking. You did good, kid. I smile. Had some help. He nods, eyes twinkling. Karen thought she could erase history. Thought she could rewrite what belonged to who. He tilts his head toward me. But you reminded everyone. I take a deep breath, letting the cool air settle in my chest. Yeah, I did. And this time, nobody will forget.